Before I start, I'd like to say thank you to the ICCS and also thank you to the Center for Hemispheric Policy for sponsoring this discussion regarding both the territorial dispute in the West Hemisphere and also the East China Sea. But before I start it, also, I want to say that it's a great working experience in Miami for 2.5 years. I'm on my way back to Taiwan. I hope this discussion will mark one of my good memories of working in Miami. East China Sea is not always a calm and stable region in history. Before I tell you more about it, let's take a look of the geographic location of this region. Well, if you see from the north, you see the Shanghai. That's the exit of the Yangtze River to the ocean. And that's the beginning of the East China Sea. Extend to the further right is to the tip of the Fukuoka area. And that above that will be is the Yellow Sea. And then the south side of the boundary of the East China Sea is Taiwan. And you can see the south tip of the Taiwan island as a peninsula. That's about the region of this whole ocean of the East China Sea. And well, you know, this region is very busy since the 17th century. Many things happened in that century in this region. One is the first so-called major naval battle in the 17th century between Ming Dynasty of China and Holland. So that war is majorly regarding trade. That's a trade issue. Well, and then also there was another battle across the Taiwan Strait between Koxinga, it's a general of the Ming Dynasty, but almost already after the Ming Dynasty transferred to Qing Dynasty, with Holland. And in this battle, Koxinga, our general, took over Taiwan and made Taiwan back to China again in the Ming Dynasty, in the early Qing Dynasty, 1670, around that time. However, in the 18th century, this region became better, calm and peaceful. The Qing Dynasty dominated the inland, and also they blockade all the vessels to the sea in order to safeguard the security of the coast. They don't like to see any activities on the water. The only activities that's seen at that time is some pirates, both from China and from Japan. They're doing business and trying to make money from this transportation of the Taiwan Strait. Well, things change again in the 19th century. It's much more different because the imperialism start more aggressively invade into this region. And then in 1894, that's a major battle happened, not in the East China Sea, but in the Yellow Sea. And that's a serious battle between Qing Dynasty's navy and the Japanese navy. Well, in this battlefield, the Qing Dynasty lost, and that caused the give up of the Taiwan island to Japanese. And that's probably the beginning of the whole history, what we are concerned now today, about the 5 small little islands, very close to the north side of Taiwan, and its name is called Diaoyutai. In English, it means the fishing platform. So you can tell that's area mostly for the fishermen. Well, and after that, another major battlefield is in the 20th century. And from here, you can see it's not just for trade, it's also for the international security reasons. In World War II, you remember there was a very bad confrontation in the Okinawa region, and that is between the United States and its allies with the Japanese World War II. And that battlefield caused tens of thousands of lives from both sides, and that makes Okinawa a very sensitive area among the East China Sea. So that's Okinawa. I will use this to show you that's the region. You have the many carriers and destroyers and cruisers sunk by the Japanese suicide pilot. I think you still remember the strategy Japanese used trying to counterbalance the attack from the US and the Allies. However, they lost. And then they had to give away the islands and territories they occupied before the World War II and after and between. Well, this is a historical background of this region. And nowadays, this region is busy for many reasons. Well, many hurricanes passing by every summertime. Also, oil tankers, sailing on the waters every day. And many activities of the submarines, I believe, from all the powers within this region. As the host said earlier, that Sushiriki told us there are 4 nations, 4 powers in this region as a neighboring: China, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. And all these activities are highly concerned by the international societies. And let's take a look at another picture of this region. Well, the red circle is where the Diaoyutai is. Geographically, it's a part of Taiwan. Nobody can deny that. It's related to the continental shelf of the Taiwan Strait, not to the Okinawa. And the distance-wise, it's closest to Taiwan, 170 kilometers. It's about 100 nautical miles. And to China, it's maybe double the distance. And to Okinawa, the nearest island from Japan, is even more further than it's to China. So Taiwan is the place geographically really related to this island. And the next one, that's the Chinese words, and you can see that historically we have the records, have a history records, official records even, since the 15th century, Ming Dynasty. Ever since then, the Chinese then government had been working to send people, dispatch the officers to get to know this area and then put that on a record. So we have some evidence later to show you about how many historical records we own if we like to present it to the International Court of Justice, which is not likely now because Japan doesn't want to do that. Again, that's the name of the island. We call it the Diaoyutai Islands. Also, the PRC government, they also name it Diaoyudao. That's about the same meaning, fishing platform. And then we can see that the historical records about how this thing's going since then. Ming Dynasty, you have the islands discovered, and it's in the 15th century. And then in Qing Dynasty, after Ming, all the territory eventually became the Qing Dynasty's Qing China's territory. However, in the 1890s, the Mingzhi, the Japanese then the cabinet, showing their interest of taking the position of these islands, and they had that happen up between the first Japan-China War in 1894 and 95. So during that period of time, the Qing Dynasty was defeated badly by Japan. So there was an unfair, unequal treaty signed between these two governments. At that time, we officially rendered the islands Taiwan, and it's pertaining islands to Japanese. So that includes the Diaoyutai. So now you can see some official historical documents proves that we start our concern and observation and also the defense of the sea included these islands. 1722 actually is one of the documents. There are more documents, but we don't show you all. You can always find it in the internet or from my office. Again, in the Qing Dynasty, you have the records. They say that the Diaoyutai the harbor can contain more than 10 big ships for all the reasons. They want to put it on a record. The island actually itself is very small, so nobody really live there seriously. There's an area, fishermen use that as a harbor for their fishing operations, but not anybody really inhibited in this area. And again, after World War II, Japan lost to the Allied countries, and according to the other international law documents, they signed a treaty between Japan and the other Allied countries, and they give away all the territories they annexed in 1895 and after. So that's how the Taiwan was returned to the Republic of China in 1945, and then the Diaoyutai, which is a Britannic islands, part of the Taiwan. So we consider that's also part of the territory the Japanese should return to us. But why the Japanese didn't really give it back to us in 1945 after the World War II is because, based on the San Francisco Peaceful Treaty, those islands combined with okay. Well, that's a reason because in the San Francisco Treaty, those islands are returned. It's not returned. It's temporarily trusted by the U.S. government. So the U.S. government took over the Ryukyu, Okinawa Islands, and then also included the Diaoyutai, the platform, as part of the trusteeship under the UN's so-called the UN agreement of this international treaty. One insufficiency of this treaty is Taiwan, Republic of China, was not invited as the signatory country. So we haven't expressed our opinion before the signing of the treaty. And later on, we signed a peace treaty between Japan and Taiwan, Republic of China in 1952. In that treaty, we didn't mention that these islands should be trusted by any government. So it means that we haven't accepted the condition, the Article 3 of the Peaceful Treaty of the San Francisco. So those are the international laws or records. Plus the World War II, we signed the Potsdam Proclamation. We also signed the Cairo Declaration. And all these international documents saying that the Japanese government, after they defeated by the Allies, should return all the territories they occupied by force or by ill tension during the war. So in this case, I already shared with you my analysis of the geographic location, of the history, and also international regulations to prove that the sovereignty of these islands belongs to the Republic of China. Now it's in Taiwan. I will leave some other things for my other speakers today, so I don't want to take all the subjects in one presentation. I think how Japan's position is and how Japanese government claim their sovereignty. I believe Dr. Hosey will have his observation, so I will leave it to him. And why now the tension escalated since last year? Honestly, the tension is always there. 1971, the US government made a statement saying that they will render the administration power back to Japan in 1972. Since then, the Republic of China, our government, start to raise our statement of the sovereignty over these islands. And also we object any kind of Japanese administrative rights, not even mention the sovereignty over the islands. Well, China, People's Republic, they also expressed their intention to claim the right of the islands. So that's how the three parties involved, involved obviously since the early 70s. The U.S. government gave these islands administration to Japan in 1972. And since then, there are always back and forth statement and also back and forth discussion between the people and the government for this issue. But there's no formal discussion among the three governments. And now why things getting worse since last September, well, you can see the tension regarding the Diaoyutai escalated since the mayor of Tokyo, he had a kind of a wild idea saying that he wanted to buy these islands from the owner of the Japanese people. Because these 5 islands actually were owned by the private people of the Japanese, not by the government. And he said he wanted to do it. Eventually led to the official actions of the then Prime Minister Noda. He also made an announcement that the government wanted to buy it, and actually they did. They bought those islands from the Japanese owner in last year in September, nationalized this island. So this is the beginning of the new flashpoint for the confrontation. Since this is a very sensitive issue for many years, and now the Taiwan, Republic of China, and PRC all have the same. And it caused a lot of dispute and actions ever since. One of the confrontation, so-called confrontation, you can see from this picture, is taken last year in September. You can see the 2 Coast Guard vessels trying to blockade each other, and also the fishermen's vessel from Taiwan. We don't really like to see this happen. Sometimes, we have the right to let the fishermen go fishing to the Diaoyutai waters. The Coast Guard of the Japanese, you can see they use a very strong water hose trying to blockade these 2 Taiwanese vessels. That's our Coast Guard. We're trying to fight back with another water hose. It looks a little bit childish, but at least we don't use bullet. That's a good thing. And we want to balance their attack to our fishermen. And eventually the 2 fisher boats approached within 3 nautical miles of the islands. Well, we think that's one gesture we should protect our fishermen. But we don't want to see this happen again, because the stability and the prosperity of the East China Sea is more important than the irrational actions between anybody. So we hope this is just once by accident, but the government always claims we have the right to fish and the sovereignty is us. So you can see this a picture offered by Reuters. Okay, now it comes to my a real so-called the jury in the crown. That's how we're trying to solve this dispute. All the third parties involved, only Taiwan proposed a peaceful solution for this difficult issue. And this is initiated by our President Ma Ying-jeou. President Ma, he is a very wise leader and also a very experienced scholar. His dissertation in the PhD program is related to the Diaoyutai. So he actually knows a lot about the confrontation and the history of this historical issue. He brought up the East China Sea Peace Initiative last year in August, even before Noda made any move, even before the mayor of Tokyo made a noise of the buying the islands from the private. President Ma already said this initiative. I have to say that he has a very good vision and prospect for what's going to happen. I'd like to ask him why he even know this before it really happened. So he brought up this initiative. At that time, not too many people really think about this. And let's see what he said. See, that's a date. He proposed a 2-stage initiative based on the concept of why sovereignty is indivisible, resources can be shared. That's the fundamental principle. And this one, he hopes that there will be some ways to put aside territorial disputes through negotiations and formulate a code of conduct in the East China Sea and engage in joint development of resources. All these are practical. We don't want to deal with the sovereignty issue because we know that it's not an easy solving problem, like as you applied to in the cases of the Latin America. So same thing happened in East Asia. We got experience. So that's why we have 2 stages to do with this. The key issues, as I said, are as follows. There are 5 major campaigning subjects. One is the code of conduct, and that is the how to jointly develop the resources in this region. And third is how to protect the marine environment. They are all Taiwan's concern because we are a modern and civilized country. We don't want to see any pollution or war in this region. So that's why President Ma also touched the very last suggestion is to join exercise to maintain conventional and unconventional security in the East China Sea. So all these are practical and all these are peaceful. And Taiwan is the only country in this issue that want to introduce a peaceful solution. We haven't heard much from the other 2 parties, Japan and the mainland China. So that's why we keep going and trying to let the international society aware of this case. As you see, eventually it happened gradually, and now everybody already understand the seriousness of this case. And over the long run, we can move from the parallel tracks. That's the second stage. President Ma also brought up how to implement this peaceful initiative. And so he said that we should have a parallel tracks. First, we started bilateral dialogue wishfully between Taiwan, China, Taiwan, Japan, and China, Japan. And when time is ready and more mature, we welcome the trilateral discussion for this issue. So that's a basic concept of our government's initiative. And I think that is very practical. Even the Japanese government, they also agree with certain part of our initiation. They will not accept the sovereignty side, but they think that this is one of the things they should think about. But China, they haven't said anything about this. So later on, we can probably discuss this more if we have time. Okay, now I have to make also a very clear statement on behalf of my government that Taiwan will not collaborate with mainland China under the One China principle for the purpose of defending or solving the sovereignty issue of the Diaoyutai Islands. This is President Ma and his government's position, to make it clear that we cannot do it as like an ally between the 2 sides of the strait against the Japanese government's claim. No, this is not what we want. Why? 3 reasons. Okay, first, between Taiwan and the mainland China, we are short of jurisprudence consensus. As I say that based on international law norms, we have every right to claim the sovereignty. And those are international agreements, as you can see, I mentioned earlier, over here. But none of them has been treated seriously by the PRC, since they were not the signatory party of those agreements. At that time, Taiwan, Republic of China, was in mainland. We were the government of the whole China then, in 1945 and until 49. So that's why they don't have the same base as we have to work together regarding the sovereignty issue. So we cannot work with China mainland. Secondly, there is no consistent resolving methods for this case. We have a practical solution already brought up, but no positive response from mainland China. and there's no practical solutions ever initiated by them. So we have no cooperation ground with them. And thirdly, is regarding a very important subject between Taiwan and Japan for many years. It's a fishing right. The Japanese Coast Guard keep driving our fish boat away from the Diaoyutai waters. And this is something we have to deal with Japan in order to safeguard the inherent fishing rights of Taiwanese fishermen in the Diaoyutai waters. Chinese mainland, they oppose any of the meetings between Taiwan and Japan to touch the sovereignty issues. But it's unlikely that we can just talk about the fishing right and ignore the sovereignty discussion. So what Taiwan want to do is to put aside the sovereignty issues, but we still insist we have the right to talk about the fishermen. Not that China can talk about the fishing rights on behalf of Taiwan. So by all these three reasons, we think this time is not right, and the position of Taiwan and China is not the same, and no cooperation on this subject. So that's something I have to mention here. Okay, by saying so much, okay, we believe a key to managing this territory dispute is that all parties involved are willing to share the controversies and share resources through joint development. That's the spirit, key spirit we want to betray in this important international dispute. So President Ma, his initiative called the East China Sea Peace Initiative, it is a soft approach to open the door for cooperations. And how can we achieve this reasonable solution? It's honestly not easy. Among all the three parties of the international politics, you know that it's a real politics. Sometimes the big power has a bigger voice, for the international arena to listen to. And for this, Taiwan is not a big power to play. So how can we make the international society understand and support our campaign? It's something we need to think about and need to do more with. Well, there's one thing I think Taiwan can do better among the three, is that the other two bigger powers, at this moment, they are only trying to blockade each other from approaching the waters, and they're trying to use a more powerful way to showing their position over the waters. But don't forget that this region is not dominated by any of these powers. So under these difficult situations, when the other players cannot be so calm and rational to carry on a solution, and why don't we let the third party, even if it's a smaller one, to act as a mediator, as a platform for the discussion? So that's why I believe President Ma is very fast to get a position in this dilemma and trying to make it a better approach for Taiwan's showing our right and capability to play as a good player of the political issue. And when we touch these things, when we talk about international politics, we realize that in this region, one of the major players is not really by the East China Sea. It is here in the United States. So the US government's role definitely affects this region since the beginning. And that is the reason we have this panel here today to discuss how can we remind our friends here, through you and to your government, that Taiwan is a real peace lover and a real smart player of such a complicated confrontation issues. And the US can also try to support Taiwan's peaceful campaign to facilitate the conversations among all the parties involved. I think it takes time, so it takes a lot of wisdom to make things happen. But without the U.S. concern and the U.S. interest in making a peaceful solution, I think things might get worse. And when the regional stability is no more, inevitably your country and other countries in the Pacific region will be affected politically, strategically, and most important, economically. So that's why I think the U.S. support to the peaceful solution, the initiative, is very important. Well, that's my conclusion, and thank you for your listening. Thank you.